just last week. Julie?
All right, Rich Edson, thank you very much. All right, I'm going to go to Capri first. I want to talk about the president's tweet because he is angry, obviously, with Nancy Pelosi. But in his tweet, he talks about how she was narrowly voted in as the majority of the House as a Democrat and as the Speaker. It still gives the Democrats every right, though, and let's make it clear, according to the Constitution, to impeach a president. That's why there's a checks and balances system. But just your reaction, I guess, to the president lashing out.
Sure. Well, number one, elections have consequences on both sides. So, you know, in 2016, we Democrats need to accept the fact that President Trump won the Electoral College. Constitutionally, that makes him president of the United States legitimately. Same thing when it comes to the House. Democrats won the House majority. They now are in the majority. And so the impeachment process is a political one in the sense that it's the House rules that ultimately govern the process in the chamber. Right now, you know, Speaker Pelosi is holding on to them because she thinks that holding on to them and not giving them to the Senate is going to give some leverage. I do believe it is in her right to hold on to them, no different than any legislative process where you have to send that message from one chamber to the other. But now it's really going to be down to the American people to see whether or not their investigation or impeachment fatigue is going to be held against Nancy Pelosi, or if we're actually going to see people like Lisa Murkowski and Mitt Romney step up. They didn't step up. They had a lot of criticism in the Kavanaugh hearings, but they actually ended up voting for Kavanaugh.
Murkowski actually voted against Judge Kavanaugh.
But Collins, rather.
And Collins voted for her, correct.
Yeah.
Look, this is about Nancy Pelosi not holding herself or fellow Democrats to their own standards. She repeatedly said that impeachment needed to be bipartisan because it was very bad for the country. It was very divisive, and yet here we are with no bipartisan support in the House. Sure, she can hold on to the articles if she wants to, but she's violating basic American principles of a speedy trial when you are accused of a crime, you know, that you've been impeached, even though some of their own witnesses now are saying that the president is not impeached until the articles are actually sent to the Senate. And the question now, yes, Lisa Murkowski says she's a little bit worried about this coordination between the White House and the Senate. This has happened before with the Clinton impeachment. The Senate, controlled by Democrats, was in close touch with the Clinton White House at that time. Lisa Murkowski has a long history of being against what the president has done. And she also said that she's worried about the way the House conducted these hearings and how they are now asking the Senate to do work that the House was supposed to do before it got to the Senate side. So she's saying both things. You know, the headline is that she's saying she's concerned about it, but she's also saying that the House didn't do its job.
Democrats are also guilty of being very partisan in this. There's been a lot of criticism from Democrats saying that, you know, Mitch McConnell and others and Lindsey Graham are saying they're impartial jurors. Well, on our side, people that are particularly running for president, like, you know, Kamala Harris, now she's not anymore, but and Cory Booker have simply said, you know, we believe that he should be impeached. And so they're being impartial too, and two wrongs don't make a right.
Okay, Griff, let's just talk about the whole impeachment. No, they do not. That is correct. I tell my children that all the time because they try to mimic each other when they're bad. But nonetheless, two wrongs don't make a right. And so now you've got impeachment by the House. And Nancy Pelosi, yes, she does have every right to hold on to those impeachment articles until she gets more investigation under their belts. But the bottom line is that she was supposed to pick two managers to basically take this to the Senate in order to present this as prosecutors to the Senate trial. And by dragging this out, you're talking about how everyone's exhausted and maybe has, you know, what was it that you called
impeachment fatigue.
Impeachment fatigue. Thank you. I mean, Americans do have impeachment fatigue. And now the new year is going to come around and this still isn't over.
It's far from over. And by the way, it's great to be here. I'm outnumbered every day. I have a wife and two daughters. So I just listen and wait for the right time to jump in. And I'm going to jump in on this because what you're seeing from Murkowski, remember, the House has the power to impeach. The Senate has the power to hold a trial. It's two pieces the founders envisioned to go that way. She's holding out. However, when you talk about whether or not Murkowski or Collins' vote would matter, it would if they were trying to decide whether or not to have a few witnesses. You need a simple majority, only 51, right? There's 55 Republican senators, 45 Democrats. But you need 67, two-thirds, to actually remove the president. I don't think there's any doubt that they're not going to hit that.
They're not.
No way. path. And so the fatigue is compounded by the fact that Americans are looking at this saying, let's just...
So then what difference at the end, first of all, will the Don McGahn testimony make at all when, regardless of that...
Well, he could just plead the fifth and all that. I mean, obviously, President Trump just wants to say that every single Republican senator voted against impeachment. But keep in mind that right before lawmakers went home for the holidays, the DOJ Inspector General excoriated the FBI for FISA abuse. So now President Trump can say, I told you so, the Russia investigation was flawed and unfair. What is likely going to happen with impeachment, it is probably going to be dead on arrival in the Senate. So that means that 2 times Democrats tried to take down the president, and it didn't work. So Nancy Pelosi knows that. And that's why I think that she's stalling, because she does want Don McGahn's testimony or tax returns or something to try and take down the president. But I think that most American people, the American people who are paying attention to this will see that. And it does look shady to me that she is, even if she has the right to, is withholding these articles.
Well, she can hold on to them, but she does not have the right or even the power to tell the Senate what to do once they receive them. So the time for them to call Don McGahn or to go to the courts to try and get the executive branch, the executive branch witnesses that they wanted was during their impeachment inquiry, which they rushed through and said, we have to.
They wanted to talk to McGahn, but it was over the Mueller investigation. So now they're bringing McGahn in a second time.
And the White House declined to be engaged in the House Judiciary Committee, which they were able to do, and they basically walked away.
But that's an issue of separation of powers. So because they are separate branches of government, the executive branch has the ability to say no. If you want to fight it out, you have to go through the court system. And people like Adam Schiff said, we have to do it right now.
While they may have the
right,
while they may have the right, to Carly's point, that also looks shady. If the American people also see that as, well, look, if you have nothing to hide, why invoke executive privilege? Just let everybody talk.
Let me just say this quickly, and that is, the entire impeachment inquiry didn't move the needle, right?
100%.
Like, we haven't seen that with the American people. And if you think another article of impeachment on obstruction of justice is the thing to move the needle, you're thinking wrong.
And I
agree with you. It's bad for Democrats. This whole thing is bad.
Well, and Senate Democrats, I would not bank on them all being in lockstep with Chuck Schumer or Nancy Pelosi. You have Joe Manchin questioning the validity of the impeachment, why it was rushed through. You have Doug Jones saying that he may vote for acquittal if they don't have the evidence to point to why the impeachment was justified. So it's moved to the Republican side, not
This is killing the momentum, I believe, that the House had.
To be a
I mean, the House just got a majority on this.
To be a moderate period.
Exactly. But anyway, all right, we got to move on. Amid the vaping illness crisis, President Trump